Rudi Dharmalingam, welcome to An Actor Despairs. How are you doing, man?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Man, it's Wakefield is, what we're here to talk about. And I haven't seen a show this vastly dense and just like such rich and true characters. And I kind of thought Short Term 12 had the market cornered on that, but like this is the best thing I've ever seen, man. It's like
Wow.
what it's just so human. And I know that's like the goal of any piece of television or film, but I feel like it so rarely happens because things need to be cinematic or dramatic. And this is just, it could be a documentary in some ways. It's just so authentic. And there's not one person who, no matter how much they're on screen, misses the boat. It's just incredible, man. Yeah, and your work as Nick is outstanding. Thank you,
Thank you.
dude.
Thank you.
Remember me when you're at the Oscars, man.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Very sweet of you. Thank you.
But if it's cool with you, before we speak about the project, let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up in, as you can tell from my accent, I'm not Australian.
Which you
Um,
nail.
Obviously, if the guys listening to this or watching this have seen Wakefield, they might be, I suppose, quite surprised to know that I'm not an Aussie. I'm very much a British actor, and I was born in a quite a small town called Maidstone in Kent.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it was quite it was a fairly primitive kind of town, although it's only about 40 miles away from London. But it wasn't a particularly creative town. It was quite run down, and it was a fairly working class kind of town. But I certainly wasn't surrounded by creativity or artistry or anything like that,
What
really.
are your parents? What did they do or do they do? What?
Yeah. Well, my dad was a radiographer. He actually was training to be a doctor, but he ran out of money.
Oh,
He came from Sri Lanka. He was born in Sri Lanka, and he came to England to train. He ran out of money, and he couldn't complete his doctor training, so he became a radiographer. And that was where he met my mum. So my mum was a nurse. She was actually she my mum was from Trinidad in the
wow.
West Indies, but it's really interesting because there's a massive population of Indian Trinis in Trinidad. So in Trinidad, there is the majority are actually Indian Trinis, and the rest are Afro-Caribbean, which a lot of people are actually very surprised to know. So when I speak to people and they say to me, "Oh, where are your parents from?" I say, "Oh, my dad was from Sri Lanka," and they go, "Oh, right, yeah, that makes sense because your name is very Sri Lankan, Dharmalingam. That's a
Yeah.
very Sri Lankan name." And then I say, "Oh, well, my mum was from Trinidad," and they go, "Oh,
Wow.
Trinidad." Like, yeah. Do you know that there's a huge population of Indian Trinidadians that have settled there for generations?
Have you been
To
to both places?
I have been to Trinidad quite a few times. I've been like 5 or 6 times, but I've never been to Sri Lanka.
Wow. Yeah. We'll have to
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
But
I'd love to go there. So, but basically, my mum was she is one of 10. She was one of 10
wow.
siblings. Yeah,
They
amazing.
you never see that
And
anymore. That's
no, you
amazing, man.
don't. Yeah, she was one
Your
of 10.
Christmases must be insane.
Well, there's so many people in my family that I don't know. So all the Trini side, all the Trinidadian side, there's hundreds of them, literally hundreds of them, and most of them I don't know. I lost my dad when I was quite young, so
Oh, I'm
my
sorry.
dad's side, I don't know my dad's side at all.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a mystery. It's a bit of a sort of a missing identity for me. So I have more of a connection with the Trini side, with the West Indian side, than I do with the Asian side, if that makes sense. I feel
Yeah.
more West Indian, more Trinidadian, more Caribbean than I do Asian, but yeah, I'm born here. So I've always had a bit of an identity crisis, I suppose. But my mum came. She was the first person to leave Trinidad out of all of her siblings. She was the first one to leave Trinidad to for another country to get to board a plane. And the only way that they were able to actually afford the airfare was if my granddad, so my mum's dad, sold a cow.
Wow.
So my granddad, my mum's dad, sold a cow in order to pay for the airfare.
Yeah.
And that paid for, and then she came to England and she met my father and she made me and made my brother. And so I have a very medical background.
That's amazing, man. I'm so curious, talk to me with parents like that. Where did the arts start to seep into your life? Like, what was the beginnings of your journey? Like, what was the impetus?
So I grew up, my brother's 7 years older than me. And he I think he very much inherited my father's academia.
Interesting.
So he was a high flyer. He was very good at maths, very good at science, very good at sort of anything academic. And I always struggled in those areas. I was okay. I was fine. I could do it. I didn't, I wasn't an underachiever in any way in that area. I just sort of, I sort of coasted along. But I suppose I was always looking for my calling, as you do, as all of us growing up. You're looking for that one thing that sparks your creativity and then sparks your imagination and, fills your life with joy, and you can't wait to do that one thing, and I found that quite early on. When I was about 7 years old, I started playing table tennis. And I remember I got home from school as one of my first week at primary school, and I said to my mum, can I play table tennis? There's a table tennis club on a Saturday. And she was a bit, okay, yeah, okay, you can go along. It's quite random. Normally it's football or cricket or athletics. Yeah. So I went along and I really, it became a real passion for me. And I spent 10 years up until the age of about 17 traveling all over the country.
Oh, so you were Forrest Gump.
Yeah. And you know what? It's interesting you should say that, because when I watch Forrest Gump and I see that scene when he's playing table tennis, and everyone's just, oh my God, it's amazing. Oh, it's so amazing. Look at the way he's playing table tennis. And I'm like, well, it's not real. You can see it's not.
They added it in CGI, right?
I was like, no, but it's not a technical stroke. Technically, it's all wrong.
That's so funny that they didn't even choreograph it. They just let them make it up.
Yeah. So that became my outlet really for 10 years, and I would play 3 or 4 times a week and tournaments, and I was number 2 in my county and number 50 in England, and and that was really my main passion really. Outside, that was my
did it fulfill you? Like when you were there competing, you loved it and you felt great about it?
I loved it so much. And my coach, my table tennis coach, who is unfortunately at the moment in a nursing home in England, and I think he must be about 90 now, and he's got dementia, and it kind of, I'm going to go and see him fairly soon. But he very much taught me, along with my dad, he taught me a work ethic. He taught me a structure and a discipline. He said to me, Rudi, go home every night, 500 forehands, 500 backhands in front of the mirror. And I did that religiously for years. Religiously, I do 500 forehands, 500 backhands. And as I suppose that those 2 big disciplinarians in my life, very early on in my life, very much structured my pathway into acting. And I got to the age of about 16, and I realized, hey, I'm not going to earn a living out of this, because I just wasn't as good as the top guys. So I was looking for that other thing, and I was always doing impressions as a kid. I was always doing impressions and silly voices, and I was always the jester amongst the family, I suppose.
Growing up in the UK, were you aware of theater and the history? Like, did you ever go to shows or?
Not at all, not at all.
Wow.
I think the first show that I went to see was probably when I was about 15, and I went to see, it was a school trip. We went to see Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat in London. And that didn't inspire me in any way, actually. I was actually...
I don't like it either.
I was when some actors talk about that sort of moment of, realization, that epiphany, when they go to the theatre for the first time, it's like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. It wasn't at all. It was, for us, it was just an evening out in London, and it didn't inspire anything within me. But I sort of started to dabble in school plays, and I did a school play, and I got some good feedback from that. But at that point, I was still very much into my table tennis and my schoolwork. I was very much, my schoolwork comes first.
Yeah.
But then I did GCSE drama, as most children do. GCSE drama is like the exams you do when you're about 16, and
SATs, right?
Yeah, right. And then I was getting A's in GCSE drama, and I wasn't getting A's in any other subject. And I suddenly started to think, okay, well, there might be something here. There might be something to explore here.
Yeah.
And very quickly, myself and two best friends, Ben and Nick, so we were a trio. We started writing lots of plays and silly sketches and creating, quite sort of off the wall characters. And we were a trio, really. And we spurred each other on. And I sort of look back on that time and think, if I hadn't have known those two guys, I wouldn't be where I am now. It's funny how sort of, you look back on moments in your life and you think that was a pivotal moment. Meeting those two people was a pivotal moment at that particular time. I did GCSE drama. I got an A star. It was the only subject I got an A star in. Went to do theatre studies at A level. And it
was university always planned for you? Was that imperative to you?
Yeah, I mean, it was always drummed into me from I didn't have very long with my dad, but my dad always told me to go to university. Yeah. So there was never, going to drama school was never an option, simply because I didn't have anyone around me to guide me in that direction. And there's no fault of my mum or my brother or my dad or anyone. Yeah. They just weren't part of that world.
I totally relate.
It was always, it was always go to university, get a degree, get a fallback, that kind of thing. That was always the path I was going to take. So, I went to, I did A-level theatre studies, and I did a course called the National Youth Theatre when I was 16, 17 even, which was great. And and that helped me, because I didn't have much youth theatre experience. A lot of kids, spend 10 years of their life doing youth theatre. I was playing table tennis, so I didn't have that body of work behind me. So I needed to get something behind me in order to be accepted onto a course.
Is National Youth Theatre part of the National Theatre, like a subset of it, or no?
No, it's not. It's not actually part of it. It's just, no, it's not. It's a separate entity.
Okay.
It still exists now. It's still very prestigious. I mean, at the time, I think there was about 5,000 people that would audition, and I think they'd take on about 150 or something back in '97. I don't know what it's like now, but it was and Nick, my friend, I mentioned to you my friend Nick, who was also part of the trio. He applied as well, and he got in.
So you had this insane experience then.
Yeah. So the school were just made up. The first two actors in the history of their school to get into the National Youth.
You and him were?
Yeah.
Wow, dude, that's incredible.
That was an awesome experience for me. Yeah.
And so when you were there, what were you doing? Mostly straight plays or musicals, or what was it?
It was a 4-week course.
Okay.
It was a 4-week course with about 20 other kids in your sort of group, and it was 9 to 5 every day, and it sort of accumulated into a a devised ensemble performance.
Yeah.
At the end of the 4 weeks, and it was. I remember my mum saying to me, "This will either make or break you, and you'll either leave, your National Youth Theatre wanting more, or you'll decide maybe you want to do something else." And I think it was, I think it's such a hard profession to get into.
Acting.
Acting,
Yeah.
it's obviously so competitive. It's very easy to be just, oh God, no, and there's no way I'm good enough for that. There's no way I'm good enough. No, I couldn't possibly. Who am I to think that I can possibly be paid to pretend to be another person? And it's you're surrounded by sort of negativity, not in my family, but just tales of the hardship of the industry. I had to sort of put that aside and go. And I did put all my eggs in one basket, and I said, no, I'm not going to do teaching.
Yeah.
I'm going to be an actor, and I'm going to give this everything that I've got, and see how that transpires.
So beautiful. And so when you finished that program, how old were you at this point?
I was 18.
Okay.
I was sort of 17 and a half or so. And then I went to university and did a degree in performing arts.
You did. Amazing.
Yeah.
And so what was their drama program like? Was it?
Well, I mean, it wasn't what I needed. It wasn't what I needed, and it wasn't what I wanted.
It wasn't a RADA or one of the
NAMDA or anything like that. It wasn't actor training. It was. I think in the first year I spent more time. I had more free time than I did actually in lectures.
Wow.
So
college can be like that in America as well.
Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, I wish I had drama training, but I wouldn't change.
You don't need it, bro. You're good.
Well, you know what? I learned so much. You learn so much from books, right? Books and working with great people.
Well, no, also that's exactly it. If drama school is a luxury for a lot of people that we take for granted, and if you're lucky enough to get work, some people, their drama school is through the work, and that's so beautiful that was it for you. So while you were there, did you feel a lack of the fulfillment that you needed? Like, were you writing? Like, what were you doing to kind of get on stage more?
I suppose I did lots and lots of, I mean, very early on, but when I was about 16, I read a book called An Actor Prepares, which I'm sure every actor knows what that book is.
Well, do you know the name of my podcast is An Actor Despairs? That's the pun.
Right. Yeah. So I read that book in a couple of days, and that was very much an epiphany for me. And I was always sort of searching for a structure to do this work, to be an actor. And I found it in that book.
So was the method, did that become something you connected with?
That became something that I really, really became very fascinated with and infatuated with. And
that's where I studied. So that's awesome.
Really? Right.
I studied at Strasbourg. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's incredible. A friend of mine went to the Moscow Art Theatre. I was deeply jealous. And I mean, that play. Yeah. I mean, it just, everything kind of made sense to me. And that whole system gave me a structure for the rest of my life. And it supplemented and complemented what I'd already learned from my dad and my table tennis coach, because they were two disciplinarians. And Stanislavski was putting down this system of discipline and structure. And I suppose I like structure in my life, and discipline and work ethic and dedication, and applying yourself in every single way that you can as an artist to create truth.
Yeah.
And I came, I finished that book, and I need to revisit it because I've not touched it for 2 decades. But I would love to revisit it because it subconsciously I try to apply as much of his work into my work today.
Oh, it's so beautiful, man. I love that. And I'm curious, when you were finishing up there, did you have a plan for post-grad, like what you would maybe do, or were you figuring out as you went?
No, I very much wanted to get out in the world of work. I wanted to give it a go. I had no intention of staying in education any longer. Maybe I should have done, but yeah, no, I very much wanted to sort of get out there. Really, I got an agent when I was quite young. When I
Oh
was about
wow. How did that?
well, yeah, I mean, when I was about 19, my second year at university, I managed to get an agent, and I waited 6 months for my first audition. So I got my first audition, after 6 months of signing with this agency. And it was for a local theatre called the Contact Theatre in Manchester in the north of England, where I studied. I was very excited, and I wrote, it was just an open audition. I can't even remember what it was for, but they said, come prepared with a monologue. And I thought I thought I'd write something. I thought I'm going to go the extra mile and I'm going to write something of my own.
Yeah.
Something utterly original. And so I wrote something, and I had props, and I had a walking stick, and I had a few other things, and and I was running late, and I basically got run over on the way to my first audition. So I ran out from behind a bus, and I was crossing a main road, and there was a bus in front of me, and I thought, okay, I'm running really late. I'm just going to take a risk and run across the road.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got whacked. I hit the windscreen, stuffed up the bonnet of the car, completely screwed. I did more damage to the car than it did to me. I was fine. I had a few torn ligaments and, a few nightmares afterwards. And, that was kind of it really. But I didn't make the audition. And a few days later, I got a call from my agent saying, I don't think this is really working out, Rudi, is it?
Oh no.
I've just been run over. I just got run over.
Oh my
so yeah,
God.
she believed me. So she really, I don't know whether she believed me or not. Because I got the person.
Yeah, because that's kind of like something one could say if they were bullshitting, but it really
right. Because I got someone that actually stopped to give me a blanket to see if I was okay on the road. I got her to call my agent.
Wow.
So whilst I was on the side of the road, I got her to call my agent. I said, look, get my phone. It's under this blah blah blah, name. Just call them and just tell them what's happened.
I am so sorry, dude. Are you okay physically now?
Yeah, or? physically,
yeah.
I'm fine. Oh yeah, absolutely. I was absolutely fine within a few weeks. But what it taught me was never be late for an audition.
Yeah.
Be prepared. And since then, I'm always that person who is 1 hour early for his meeting. I mean, nowadays, obviously everything's on self-tape, but back in the days where you'd knock on a door, buzz for the 5th floor. Hi, it's Rudi Dharmalingam here. Hi, Rudi. You're a bit early. Could you come back maybe in about an hour? Because you're an hour. Oh, yeah, that's fine. I'll just walk around the block. So I just walk around the block.
Dude, I love it. That's so beautiful, man. And man, I mean, it's a really heavy thing that, getting dropped by an agent, at any stage in your career, it fucking sucks. So that happening to you so early, how did you handle that?
I was pretty gutted, really. I mean, because as a young actor, you're only 19 and you get signed by an agent and you think your career is going to take off pretty quickly, but obviously, it very, very, very rarely works like that. But, I picked myself up and I started to apply to a few more agents, and I got signed with another agent who I stayed with for quite some time. And that was when I graduated from university, and then I spent the next 2 years selling conservatories to pay my bills because I didn't have any acting work. I just graduated.
Sorry, what is that conservatory?
So a conservatory. Oh, you're right. Okay.
Yeah.
So in England, in the UK, you have they're quite dated now. They don't really make them that much anymore. They're sort of a thing of the 80s, 90s, where you have like a glass building on the side of your house. It's like it's called a conservatory. So
like a sky room is what we call them.
Yeah, you call them sky rooms. So it's all on the back of the house. It's just a glass structure that was quite fashionable in the 90s, and they're not now at all. And I had to pay my bills. So I was that person that would call people on the phone and say, hey, do you want a conservatory kind of thing? We're off. We've
Just
got
cold
people.
calling random people.
Cold calling people.
Wow.
Yeah. As actors all do. We all do
Yeah.
that. I've had loads of call center jobs in between work over the years. And yeah, so I did that for 2 years, and I had this new agent, and they were getting me lots of auditions and lots of theatre auditions, a few bits of TV, and having to try and get the time off from work was always really difficult because, it's hard because they don't understand. Often your boss doesn't understand your profession, and you get 1 day's notice to get, onto the other side of the country kind of thing. So I did that for 2 years, traveling down from Manchester to London, couldn't afford a train, had to get a bus. The bus would take me 7 hours. And the round trip, I'd do that in a day. So that'd be a 14-hour round trip in 1 day for an audition. And I did that for a long time.
How did you not let that, transit's hard no matter if it's 30 minutes. How did you have the stamina to keep that up?
Yeah, I mean, I became quite used to getting on the website and booking the cheap tickets.
Yeah.
Even if it did take 7 hours to get from A to B, and that was without the tube. So you'd get to London, and you'd still have to get halfway across London to get to audition and then get back again. And because a train wasn't even a possibility because I just didn't have the money. I was so poor.
Were you reading? Like, how were you killing the time? Like, what were you?
So there was no, obviously these are the days.
Yeah, the iPhone didn't exist.
No smartphones, no laptop. Well, we had laptops, but there was no streaming. There was nothing.
Yeah.
No, it was just me and 50 other people in a coach and a book, wow. And my scripts. I do remember once actually I made that journey, and it was for a workshop for a new play, and it was an offer for the workshop. It was only 1 day, and I was on the bus and I got stuck in traffic. A huge traffic jam, and I had to call my agent, and I said, I'm not going to make this. I'm not going to make it. And I literally got to London, I don't know, 8.5, 9 hours later, got off the bus, hung around for 10 minutes, and then got back on the bus and went back home.
Oh my God, man.
It was pretty demoralizing. It was, even thinking about it makes me want to cry.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's like PTSD. Oh my God, man.
Yeah. So it was,
speaking of despair.
Yeah. So I had it quite hard for many years, really, until I got that big break and things began to change.
Well, before we dig in the big break, because the show is called what it is, how did you buoy yourself during that time? Like, when you were struggling, like what kept you showing up, because that's the hardest thing you can do when you're constantly being rejected 5,000 times.
Yeah, it's funny because so all the way up until the point that I graduated, I think I'd sort of got every audition that I went for. So National Youth Theatre, a few school plays, the stuff at university that we did. I don't think I'd ever experienced rejection before as an actor. So I came out of university thinking, well,
it's all going to work out. Yeah.
Work out. It's just going to happen. Success is just going to come to me because, hey, no one said no before. And obviously that was pretty stupid of me. So I very, very quickly got used to rejection. And I suppose what kept me going and what keeps me going now is the belief in my own ability.
Yeah.
And, having a strong network around you is really important. I have a very strong network of family around me, which keeps me afloat, which I'm very appreciative for.
And was your mother supportive during these times of you still
Yeah,
going?
my mum was supportive, but also my wife. You know, my wife has been sort of my rock really for the whole experience. And there've been times where when I became a parent for the first time, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but when I became a parent for the first time, I'd worked very consistently up until that point, and I just, you know, I thought, hopefully that will continue. And the phone stopped ringing. So my son was born, and the phone didn't ring for 2 years. Bizarrely, it was a pretty dark time for me because I'd just become a father. I had this huge responsibility, and the work just wasn't there.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
So I went back to the call center. So anyway, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Let's rewind.
Yeah. Okay, so you're struggling. You're not booking work. What are you going up for at this point? Theater, film, TV?
Yeah, so I'm going. I mean, this was in the early noughties where there was no streaming. I mean, it was literally, you know, a handful of TV channels, films, and theatre. So, I mean, my ambition when I wanted to, you know, from the moment I wanted to become an actor was to maybe, you know, do a season of plays at the RSC, or get to the National, or get to the Royal Court, or, you know, the idea of doing a soap opera, a continuing drama, was never something that I wanted to do. Partly due to the fact there was probably a little bit of, I don't know, it wasn't as highly regarded as working at, say, at the RSC for, you know, doing the entire canon for like 4 or 5 years or something. That was always my goal, or playing Hamlet. So that was always on the horizon for me, that I've always strived to do. Amongst,
I'm curious, if you don't mind me asking, because you didn't attend drama school, how were you working classical out? Like, did you, just because, you know, you grew up there,
just taught myself.
Really?
I just taught myself. I just read a bunch of books on iambic pentameter, and I watched a ton of, you know, videos and BBC Shakespeare stuff. I just watched other people do Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, they're doing that. Okay, right, cool. Okay, so that's how you do it. Ah, right, okay. Because I wasn't really taught that at university. Not really, not in any great sort of depth. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have to do this myself.
Yeah.
Because that's what I really want to do. So Shakespeare was always something I really wanted to apply myself to. And so I was auditioning for lots of different things all over the country. And then I got to not much, well, basically, my very first job was it was a theatre and education tour, TIE. So where you have this in the States, but you have a troupe of actors, like maybe 3 or 4 actors in a van with a set and costumes and sound.
Yeah,
and
that does exist.
You travel around the country from school to school to school to school, you know, giving a presentation with a underlying moral, whether that be don't take drugs, or stay at school, or don't drink alcohol, or whatever it is. So that was my first job. I did that for 3 months, which was fun. I had to do an impression of Scooby-Doo. I had to do an impression of Bart Simpson and other sort of popular cultural characters as part of this message. But deep down, it wasn't something that I wanted to do for the long term. And anyway, I got eventually, after about 2 years of just auditioning and selling conservatories, I got a call from my agent saying, you know, do you want to audition for this play? It's called The History Boys. It's the new play by Alan Bennett at the National. They want you to understudy the lead, who was played by Dominic Cooper.
Yeah. James Corden as well, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I traveled down on my bus, on my 7-hour bus journey down to London. I met Nick Heitner. I met Toby Whale, who was the casting director there at the time. I got back on my bus. And then the next day I got a call saying, they think you're great. They want to see you again.
Wow.
So I went the following week, got back on the bus, another 7 hours, did the same thing again. I didn't do anything different to what I did last time. And then actually, as I was leaving the office, Nick Heitner's office, I was in Nick Heitner's office, the great Nick Heitner. He sort of said to me, and you don't ever get this anymore, because you're very used to actually going into a room and everyone just being very neutral, not giving anything away, whether they like you or not. It's very much, okay, thank you for coming, and have a nice day. Thank you. Yeah. That's really all you get. Whereas I sort of left Nick Heitner's office and Nick just sort of said to me, I think you've done enough. Wow. And I just went, yes, that means I've got it. Yes, I've got it. I've done it. And then I got a call saying, yeah, you've got the gig. And
was that the break that you would say?
Yeah,
is like,
it was because actually, and I realized I was very, very lucky to get that job, because when I got to the National Theatre, when I started working on History Boys, I suddenly realized that everyone had been to drama school.
Yeah.
And everyone had a pretty good agent. And I suddenly thought, okay, I'm pretty lucky to be where I am right now, and I need to raise my game, because everyone's been classically trained for 3 years, whereas I've just sort of read a few books and watched a few videos and did a degree in performing arts, which I had to very quickly raise my game. Yeah.
Wow. And I'm curious, because I know in British, acting, people can really, they can treat those drama schools as the only validation for that. So like when you're going in there with those actors, did they treat you any different for not being at a RADA, Lambda, Old Vic,
No, not at all. No one treated me any differently at all. It was, but I was very much a rabbit stuck in headlights.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd never seen a theatre that big before. I'd never been in a theatre that big before. I mean, it was just utterly daunting. It was really, really quite scary. But I mean, I was, for a year and a half, whilst I was doing that job, I was an understudy, and I never went on. Dominic Cooper was like a robot. I mean, he would never took a day off. So he was pretty incredible. But then I did it for a year and a half, and I went on. I ended up going on in Broadway. Yeah.
Yeah, you transferred to New York, right?
Yeah. So one of the actors couldn't perform, and Nick said,
so not for Dominic's role, for a different role.
Dominic, no, for a different role. And Nick, one of the actors couldn't perform, and Nick said to me, "Look, I know you don't understudy the role, but I'd really love you to play the part." So I said, "Well, yeah, that would be incredible." But this was on the Wednesday, and first preview was on the Friday. So I had 1 day to learn. I mean, listen, I'd been through 300 performances. I'd heard 300 performances of it. But it's one thing actually sort of hearing a show, and there's another thing actually articulating the words and everything that goes with a show. It's, the logistics, the orchestral sort of element of it.
Blocking,
it's not in your body. It's not in your body. It's not, it's all muscle memory, isn't it? So I went on first night on Broadway, having never done the show before, utterly terrified, thinking, what the hell am I doing? But, you got to put these, it's these moments in life where you have to take it, don't you? You have to take it and fly with it. Otherwise, you sort of face the risk of failing. And it's that risk of failing is something that
it burned the fire underneath you.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And going on that Friday, you had no rehearsal, nothing. You just went up, and
I think we probably top and tailed it for a couple of hours on the Thursday, perhaps. But I certainly didn't get a full run. No, I mean, this just wasn't. Thursday was the tech. So I probably did. Yeah, it's a long time ago. So it was. Yeah. And I did it for 2 weeks. It was incredible.
Wow. How was it? I mean, Friday, tell me, how did it feel?
Well, I remember opening night. I very, very sort of vividly remember opening night, and the curtain came down, and we did the curtain call, and then there was just this sort of gang of photographers that descended towards the front of the stage down the center aisle. You couldn't see anything because it was just flash, 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 flash. Couldn't see anything. It was just, yeah. And then we got whisked away in a limousine, and Joan Rivers was there, and all these people that I'd sort of grown up watching,
Yeah.
And it was a moment. Yeah, it was a moment in my career that I sort of look back on those days when I was selling conservatories and getting run over and pushing tables, because essentially as an understudy, that's all I was doing. I was just pushing tables on and off the stage for a year and a half. I wasn't doing any acting. I was just lifting a table and moving a table into position. Eight shows a week for a year and a half. Wow. But it was good to finally be part of that.
And was that your first exposure in America as well?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was my first time in America. Yeah.
So then, having such an awesome experience, did you start to think maybe I should get some American agents as well?
Yeah, I had a meeting with when I was out there. I had a meeting with an American agent, actually. Yeah, but they wanted me to stay out there. They wanted me to stay out there for like another 6 months or so. And by that time, I was a bit homesick.
And you were married with a kid at this point?
Well, no, not at that point. No,
okay.
Way before that. But I was a bit homesick, and I suppose I wanted to get home. And the idea of spending another 6 months out in America wasn't away from home wasn't very appealing. And so yeah, I came home, and maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should have just sort of bit the bullet and stayed out there and see what occurred. But because I came home and I didn't work for 6 months. I thought, you get what's interesting is you get these moments in your career where you think, this is it.
Yeah.
This is that moment. This is the moment. It's all going to fly from here. And it never is.
No.
There's really always, it's never as easy as that.
And despite not working, when you were back, were you auditioning for bigger things?
No, I didn't at all. And I the work sort of ground to a halt again. And I felt like I was starting from square one.
Wow. All
over again. But then, with patience, I think patience is a very key thing in this industry as an actor.
Yeah.
You have to, it's very rare for, not everyone can be,
Taylor Swift or,
graduate from university and have, a flurry of agents all want to sign you. And then all of a sudden you've got American rep and, it's everyone wants a piece of you. It's very rare for that to happen. Most of us are all jobbing actors, right? 99% of us are all jobbing actors, and we go from job to job to job. So, I just went back to the drawing board and started auditioning again. And then I spent, the next sort of 10 years, 15 years, 10 years.
Building your credits up on the British classics, Doctor Who and all those, BBC.
Oh, not even, well, yeah, I mean, I did bits of that. I mean, TV and film was never really it was never really something on my radar. I wanted to do Chekhov and Ibsen, and I wanted to do more Shakespeare. I wanted to play Hamlet. I wanted to play Constantine.
Well, let's talk about that, because you did do Hamlet.
Well, I did do Hamlet, but I didn't play Hamlet.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna put this out into the universe now, because that's another thing I believe in, is writing stuff down and actually sending stuff manifesting it. Yeah, exactly. Otherwise you're just floating. I'm a firm believer that if you don't set goals and targets and ambitions for yourself, then you're just sort of floating.
Yeah, existing. Totally.
Existing, with no real direction. But if you can actually, if you have a sort of a vision in your mind of where you want to go to, and I want to play Hamlet, and I feel like that will happen hopefully within,
I'm gonna make it happen.
The coming years.
Yeah, man, I would love to see was Hamlet. I mean, even though you didn't get to play Hamlet himself, how was it doing such a prestigious production? Did it feel sort of like I'm sort of close, or because it wasn't the role, it didn't really scratch the itch?
Well, it was I was at the time of the audition. I was doing a play at the Almeida Theatre in North London, and it was a production of the Oresteia by Aeschylus, and it was an adaptation by Rob Icke. And I'd worked with Rob Icke before, and yeah, so it was his adaptation. So I was working on that, and that was a 4-hour adaptation, and I was on stage for the entirety of that 4 hours. So I didn't leave the stage for 4 hours. So we were in the middle of that run, and it ended up getting Rob the Olivier. It was a really amazing show. And then I got the audition through. Actually, it was in rehearsals. I got the audition through for Hamlet.
Yeah.
And I got Hamlet. I got to read for Guildenstern. And I got that. I got that, which was amazing. But it meant that I would be rehearsing Hamlet at the same time as performing at Oresteia.
Wow.
For the entire, so Oresteia was a 6-week
Your
run.
stamina, dude. You need to like start a podcast just about stamina.
Yeah. Honestly, no. I mean, so Oresteia was 6 weeks. It's a 6-7 week run, and for that entire time, I was rehearsing Hamlet. Now, yeah, I was on stage for 4 hours. I didn't live in London, and I don't live in London now. It would take me 2 hours to travel home from London. So it would come down at about 11. I'd get home at probably 1:30 in the morning after a show. And then I'd be up at about 6:30 to get a train into London for rehearsals for Hamlet.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I didn't have time to be tired.
Yeah.
You know, when you're working that hard,
you're so busy
and you're enjoying it. And that's the point, is that every day for me, whether, you know, I love to be exhausted by my work.
Yeah.
I love to feel utterly drained. So that was a pleasure. I mean, it was a nightmare for my family because they never saw me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it was an utter pleasure. And yeah, it was an incredible time. We did it for 3 months, and we did, yeah.
How was seeing, you know, someone who's obviously one of those actors who's been so well received by the world do a role that you love? Was that interesting? Like going back to learning with, you know, being in the rooms with those kind of people, you know, was that, you know, Benedict's great. I mean,
Benedict Cumberbatch's amazing, really generous and lovely and talented. And he'd be sort of asking me for advice because he'd be like, okay, because my theatre experience at that point was probably vastly bigger than his, because he was, you know, he was on a very different sort of trajectory in terms of screen acting. So it was lovely working with him. It was lovely working with Kieran Hines, you know, all these incredible people, and Lindsay Turner, the director. And Lindsay was a bit of a disciple of Katie Mitchell, and I don't know if you know Katie, but Katie Mitchell is, I suppose, regarded as one of the greatest modern day theatre directors in Europe, really, and she's a massive Stanislavski fan, and she bases a lot of her methodology and the way that she rehearses actors on the works of Stanislavski. So Lindsay brought a lot of that into the rehearsal room. So it was in terms of, you know, I normally hate all that round table stuff, you know, when you sit around a table for 2 weeks just talking. I mean, that's just...
Yeah, you want to be performing.
Of course, ask any actor. Most actors utterly hate it. However, on this experience, I really enjoyed it because we were talking about the principles of Stanislavski in terms of, you know, events and intentions and, you know, motion memory and units and objectives and breaking things down. It was really, really technical stuff, but stuff that I grew up learning about, having read a lot of Stanislavski's works. Yeah, it was so wonderful.
Beautiful. And last question before we dig into Wakefield, you know, was the split your first like experience doing a series regular on a show?
It was my first experience doing a series regular. Yeah, so I was in South Africa. I was in Cape Town.
No way! Did you guys film at Cape Town Studios?
No. I was doing a TV show for BBC called Our Girl,
Okay.
And we were in Cape Town at the time, and this audition came through from my agent, and I laid down the tape, I did it, and they said, that's great, but we'd like you to read for this role instead. So I read for this other role. I didn't have anyone to read in. You know, that's part of the problem, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
self-paced. You have to rely on other people being around
totally.
to read with you. In this occasion, I didn't have anyone, so I imagined the lines coming. I think I've only done this on a few occasions. So if anyone's listening to this thinking, "Oh, maybe that's a good idea," probably don't do this. Always try and get someone to read in with you. But I was in a strange country. I had no one around that I knew. No one was available, so I propped up my phone on some cushions and I imagined the lines coming back at me. And I did the tape, laid it down, sent it off. You know,
You didn't dub the lines in after?
No, I just imagined them coming
Wow,
back.
dude.
And I just had them in my head, go, oh yeah, and just reacted, sort of try to, you know, react as organically as I could. And I got the job, and that was my first, series regular. That was wonderful because I've just done series 3, actually, season 3.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, and was that a wonderful experience for you? Finally getting that, you know?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. But that's another thing as well, though, because when going back to goals and ambitions and putting, you know, your targets out there into the universe, I always said to myself, I'll get a series. I'll get one. It's just around the corner. It's just a matter of time. And I kept telling myself that.
Man, I need to consume your energy. I'm right there.
Honestly, you've got to just sort of like talk.
Yeah.
I often talk to myself.
I do every day.
Myself out loud, not just in my head. There's no good. There's no good it being in there.
Yeah.
I think it's imperative that it's out there.
Projected. Yeah.
It's projected, and someone answers that, or something, or an energy answers that. But I'm not religious, but I do believe in,
energy. Yeah.
Energy. Yeah.
Totally. Same. Wow, man. Thank you. Your story's amazing. We're gonna have to do a part 2, man. Like I could go for you for hours, but for the sake of you know, promoting the wonderful project that, I mean, I think, dude, you're the future, man. I mean, the work you did on this, it is so seismic. But before we dig in the work, how did this project come your way?
Yeah, sure.
That being Wakefield for the audience. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. What did you say? Sorry.
I was just saying it Wakefield we're talking about for the audience.
Yeah. So yeah. I received the audition through from my agent, and I received the series Bible, read the series Bible. I was utterly immersed in this world.
So you got a lot of info on this one.
I got a huge amount of information.
So was it an offer or?
No. It was just an audition. It was just an audition. They wanted to send out the series Bible, and I read it, and I was consumed by it, and I immediately wanted to do it. But of course, I've been in that position before, many occasions where you invest so much of your time and effort and creativity into an audition over the course of maybe a few months. Sometimes it can range from, you know, sometimes it's weeks, sometimes it's months from the first audition to the 4th or 5th audition. And by the time the 4th or 5th audition comes around, you are so heavily invested in this project. When you don't get it, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for a few days, but then you get over it and you pick yourself up and go again. But this one, I sort of read the series Bible, and I was immediately into it and laid down a tape. And a few weeks later, they really love you, and Jocelyn Moorhouse wants to have a chat with you over the phone. I had a chat with Jocelyn Moorhouse over the phone. Then I had a few more tapes, and got the role, and it was an incredible feeling. It was very much like Andy Dufresne at the end of Shawshank.
Yeah, wow.
You know, when he's out
that scene. That's what I was gonna say.
I did that. I did that. I was on my way to pick up my boy from school, and I got the call from my agent, and he said to me, Rudi, how are you doing? I said, yeah, I'm good. He said, so it's terrible weather out there, isn't it? I said, yeah, it is. He said, well, I bet it's much nicer in Australia.
Oh my God, man.
I said, are you joking? No, it's yours. You know, when there's that one role that you wanted so bad,
Yeah. It was.
and it works out. It works out, and I just then had to think about learning to tap dance and learning to
I was
do
gonna
enough.
say, dude, you're an excellent dancer.
Oh, thanks, man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really, really kind of you to say. But I had to really learn. I had to really, yeah. It really did not come easy because I'm not a dancer.
I mean, speaking of learning, what about the accent? Was that, something you had to work at, or was that pretty easy
Yeah,
for
I
you?
mean, I've always been pretty good with accents. I mean, I was never worried about the accent at all. I knew that it would be tough, but I was never worried. I didn't lose any sleep over it. But the dancing was something that was totally out of my comfort zone because
Yeah.
I'd never done it professionally. The only time I'd done it was when I was at university,
Yeah.
and I had to pass my first module, dance module, in order to progress to the second year, and I got 40%, which is a pass. 39% is a fail,
Yeah.
40% is a pass. And I said, thank you so much for passing me. She said, really, the only reason why I passed you was because I couldn't bear to see you take that exam again.
Oh
So
my God.
I was like, thank you. No, that's fine. I'm totally cool with that. I'm
Yeah.
totally cool with that. And I just wanted to pass it. But then, yeah, so I was constantly tapping away on my hotel room floor. You know, I had a lot of,
Ray. Yeah.
I had amazing teacher in Chris Horsey, and I had Tim Newman also in the UK who gave me some initial lessons. And I think it just goes to show that actually, I mean, I remember Tim saying to me, he said to me that what we've done together over the course of 6 weeks, having obviously the fact that you've never done any dancing before
Yeah.
and how far you've come, he said to me, that is just a testament to the fact that anyone can do anything if they put their minds to it. If you practice hard enough at anything, whether it's playing the guitar, I don't know,
Learning French.
learning French,
Right.
Greek,
Yeah.
whatever, if you practice hard enough and dedicate everything you've got into something that is out of your comfort zone, you can do it. We can all do it.
Yeah. So I, man, everything you're saying, I needed to hear today. So it's like, speaking of energy, just divine intervention, man. But
Yeah,
I'm,
right.
I'm, I'm, I'm curious, at this point, you did have the series Bible. So you get to Australia. Did you have all 8 scripts already?
No, no, not at all. So they sort of got, I think they got trickle fed. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to remember. I mean, the whole thing was a bit of a blur for me, to be honest, because I had so much to
To
consume
learn?
myself. I had
Yeah.
so much to learn. Tap dancing. I had to learn how to do a tango. I had to do the accent, and I had to go on a pretty epic mental breakdown over the course of 8 episodes. So the whole process was pretty discombobulating.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the episode sort of trickle fed, and I couldn't really. I remember I think we were on about episode 4, and they said,
So
"Oh,
did you
episode
shoot in
7."
order then, or?
Yeah, we shot rough. Well, it was in 3 blocks. So block one was
Okay.
episodes 1, 2, and 3. Blocks 2 was 4, 5, and 6, and then block 3 was 7 and 8. So um, we shot sort of not in order, but
Yeah.
obviously, but I mean, it's certainly in block order. But yeah, the whole thing was pretty, yeah, discombobulating for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
There was lots of there were lots of similarities with my own life that I identified with Nick. Um, yeah, because I mean, I experienced some trauma as a child, and in hindsight, I think the table tennis was probably my way of coping with that trauma.
And your mother's a nurse, so did did
Yeah.
did she help at all?
Well, she wasn't a mental health nurse, so I mean, I spoke to a mental health nurse, and again, I did lots and lots of reading,
Yeah.
which is part of a big part of my research. But I think ultimately it came down to what was in here instinctively and what I had already percolating and the mental framework that I was able to build
Yeah.
using all that Stanislavski stuff I learned when I was 16. So yeah, I was a bit of a mess actually by the end of it. I had to take some
Have to
time
be.
out and just recalibrate and ground myself again, because I went on a really big journey of self-discovery for this particular character that I'd become very embroiled in in quite a big way. Like, I mean, I didn't. If you've seen, I don't know if you've seen, but the the listeners, viewers that are, sort of tuning in, Nick becomes more and more distant and isolated and desolate, and he
withdrawn
and withdrawn, and he doesn't sleep as much, and so I sort of try to. Over 6 months, I tried to limit myself to about 4 or 5 hours sleep maximum a night, because I wanted to just feel exhausted, and I wanted to deliberately isolate myself from everyone else. I mean, that was great when COVID happened. Everyone was isolating anyway, so it was perfect.
That happened during the production.
Yeah. So we got shut down at the end of March.
Wow.
And then we went back in August. So when I went back in August, I quarantined for 2 weeks in a hotel room, which was...
Oh, so you really went through it.
It was really hard. It was pretty hard, but it was wonderful for the character, because I felt I was just able to just
use it,
build this pressure cooker of emotion at a really critical point in the show.
That's amazing. You're so good in it, man. I mean, it's so lived in. So the fact that you say Stanislavski and the way you were approaching the work, it shows. And the thing I love about the piece is that it humanizes both the workers and the patients. And sometimes, often they just focus on the workers or just the patients, but they're both treated as equals here. And that it's so unique in that. And working with this, let's call it a company, so to speak. How was that, because everyone was so good, man.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was wonderful. I mean, I think that's where some people can think the Stanislavski approach or the method approach can be quite
grueling,
quite
insular.
Quite insular, and actually, I think my background in theatre teaches an actor to be part of an ensemble, and it's very much a collaborative process. It's a team, so that teamwork ethic has always been in me. And I think that when you can marry that with an approach of the intensity of the system that he set out, I think it's a pretty good combination. So for me anyway. I mean, obviously everyone's different, but if you've got a teamwork and an ensemble ethic, and a really sort of a sort of a strong mental framework, building a character method, I think that's a good thing. Well, it worked for me anyway, and it does continue to work for me. And we all have our own techniques, but yeah.
Talk to me about the gap, just because of what you had to bring to it. You're doing this. There's a question mark break. Nobody knows when you're going to come back. So, and obviously you have a family and a wife. Was it hard letting go of him for, an indefinite period of time?
Yeah, I don't think there was any doubt in my mind that we would finish the show.
Yeah.
I think I always knew that we would finish a show, but it was a matter of when. And as a result of that, I don't think I ever let go of the character. I let go of the accent. I didn't let go. Whilst I was in Australia, I certainly didn't let go of the accent. All I listened to was Australian radio.
Yeah.
And I already slip into the Australian. I can feel it now. Even thinking about it, I feel like I'm going into Aussie. But yeah, I sort of managed to move away from the Australian accent. And I continue to learn to tap dance and continue to, learn my routines that I would have had to have learned later on in the episode. So later on in the series. So yeah, I mean, that time was tough for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus. I mean, I'm only making a TV show. There's bigger things in the world to worry about. But it was a tough time for humanity, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was the darkest. I hope to never experience it. I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. And I'm interested to hear how it's been to see it unravel. Not COVID, the show. It aired in Australia, then it aired in the UK, and now it's here. What has it been like seeing it exist on 3 different fronts? And has it been different? Like, what has that been like as an actor?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's aired in Australia. It aired in Australia earlier this year, And then it's just recently started airing in the States on
Yeah.
Showtime. It's yet to come to the UK.
Oh, okay. I misread that.
I'm hoping it does. I don't see why it wouldn't, but it's been wonderful to hear the reception of it, because when you're doing a TV show, when you're doing a theatre, whatever, you never really, you become desensitized to it, don't you? You never really know what you're doing is any good, or just an utter pile of trash. You just don't know.
Particularly when you're auditioning, because there's no feedback.
Yeah. So it was wonderful to get that kind of feedback in Australia, and it was just the whole thing was just wonderful. It was probably, I would say, it's probably the most professionally satisfying experience of my career, and I met some people on that job that are deeply within me, and will be deeply within me for the rest of my life. Really, they very special people. The director, Kristen Dunphy, Sam Meikle was the showrunner and writer and one of the creators, and I told Sam things about my life I'd never told anyone. I'd only known him for a few months, but Sam and I had this constant ongoing dialogue about the character, and he was very well aware of how lots of my life was seeping into this character. And it was a very cathartic process.
That's so beautiful. I personally, awards or whatever, but man, you deserve every one of them, and I'm rooting for you, man. I mean, what you've done with Nick, I identify with him, and I identify with you, and it's just raised the bar so much for me. I mean, your work is outside.
I think on a macro scale, I mean, it's about something that I feel very deeply about. I think the two big things at the moment are climate change and our own mental health.
Yeah.
I think they're the two most important things on a macro and a micro level. And I think mental health is something, obviously it's becoming more and more popularized, and it's becoming more and more sort of it's becoming less stigmatized than what it used to be. There's still so much more to be done though, and I think it's utterly sort of imperative that we all as a race, as humanity, begin to actually just admit to the fact that every single one of us walks that line of sanity every day, and we can fall off it at any time, whether that's be through anxiety or depression or addiction or fears or whatever it is, road rage, whatever. We all walk that line, and we all fall off it, and we can all talk about it. The worst thing we can do is not to talk about it. We need to share it as individuals. I think it's a bigger comment, aside from Nick's own individual trajectory through the series. I think it's a much bigger commentary on how we can all unify and come together in the fact that we're all suffering. We all suffer.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, man. I really appreciate that. I'm curious, has your phone been ringing a lot? Because it better fucking be, you know what I mean? Fuck, dude, you're so good.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been ringing a bit, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's a few things that might be materializing, but I've got a TV show out next year called.
Can you?
Yeah, I can talk about it. It's called Extinction, and it's for Sky One, written by Joe Barton, and that's an 8-part drama, sci-fi thriller. And I mean, the funny thing is that when go back to Sam Meikle, the showrunner, writer, and creator on Wakefield, one of the creators, he said to me, "What do you want to do next?" I said to him, "Do you know what? I'd love to do something that doesn't involve a mental breakdown, because I've done 3 mental breakdowns in the last 3 years. I've played characters with 3 mental breakdowns, so I'm pretty good at it now. If I need a brown actor to do a mental breakdown, they normally call me."
Well, you know what, dude? I'm gonna call Barbara Broccoli and get you in for Bond, because they're casting.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So if you could, that would be amazing.
I got you. I'll call her right after this.
I said to Sam, you know what? I'd love to do something out of this world. So I'd love to do some kind of sci-fi project and something quite sci-fi came up next. And that's exactly what I mean by projecting what you sort of want, or what you're sort of aiming for. And yeah, so Extinction is a very much a sci-fi thriller, which will be out next year.
It's
It's gonna
beautiful.
be great.
And now that you're taking over the world, man, is theater something that's, I mean, obviously I know you want to do Hamlet, but is that something you would still consider?
I think not at the moment. At the moment, I'm really enjoying screen work. I love
Yeah.
the intimacy. I love the intimacy of doing TV and film. You can't. I always found that very difficult to achieve, playing to 2,000 people in a theatre,
Yeah.
night after night, 8 shows a week. I found that really difficult. I did it, but I found trying to get to that depth of truth much more difficult than on screen. So I'm really enjoying the medium of TV and film at the moment. I'd love to go back to theatre at one stage. I
Well,
don't know
when you do Hamlet on
when I do
Broadway in the
Hamlet.
West End, yeah,
When I do Hamlet, maybe, yeah.
yeah.
But at the moment, I'm pretty cool.
Are you open to doing work in America?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wherever the work takes me, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, man. Rudy, this has been such an honor, man. Final question for you, because you've spoken about it, but it's a tough question, and I'm sorry to ask because I know it's very complicated, but I really identify with your journey, and I'm in the struggle myself, and I've never heard such immense stamina and persistence from an actor in almost 170 episodes of this show. And we're at a tough time, coming out of a pandemic, still in a pandemic. And, work is scarce for people that haven't worked yet.
Yeah,
And,
right.
it's a really tough time. And, as we spoke about, self-tapes are the norm. You can't get seen anymore. And it's that double-edged sword. Nobody sees you until you've been seen, but you can't get seen. So for the actors listening, any words of wisdom for what kept you going through the darkness?
I think what kept me going through the dark times that I've had over my career is the is the kind of is the ability to just continue to. I mean, believe in yourself has become a bit of a cliche, because I feel like that's been sort of overused, and it's very hard to actually believe in yourself when
Yeah.
you're not being paid to do what you deeply love doing. And sometimes it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel when you're getting rejection after rejection after rejection. You're not getting a meeting. That other person is getting the jobs, and you're not getting the jobs. What is it? I think the most important thing you can do is actually have other things in your life
Yeah.
apart from acting as well, because it can be very easy, especially if you don't have the support network. It can be very easy to sort of succumb to this, to a very negative energy that has sort of been born from a period of time where you're not getting what you want out of the industry. And that can happen very easily. It happens to all of us. But read other things. Just try to sort of break that kind of tunnel vision of ambition,
Yeah.
and try and consume your life with other things that you enjoy as well. And don't put too much pressure on yourself. Continue to do what you do. Watch films, read plays, read about practitioners, keep the creative juices flowing. And as long as you're doing everything you can, when you get a self-tape, no matter what it's for, as long as you're doing everything within your power, within your capability, and you can do that, and you can set it aside and go, right, I've done the best I can do there.
Yeah.
I can't do anything else apart from send that off, and maybe I'll get the job. But if I don't, then that's cool. But I tried my best, and that's really all you can do. And keep goal setting, and keep talking to yourself like I do. Keep talking to yourself like, I want to play Hamlet. I want to play Hamlet. Yeah, whatever it is. Neighbors might think you're crazy, but
Well, we're all crazy. We're artists, man.
we're all
And
crazy.
yeah, Rudy Dharmalingam, I've enjoyed talking to you so much. I'd love to have you back, especially
Definitely.
when Extinction comes out. Come on
Yeah.
back and let's break it down, man.
Yeah. I feel like it hasn't been enough time, right?
No, no, no. Man, I mean, dude, you're a legend. I'm just so grateful for your service, and I'm just I'm proud of you. I'm just so
Thank you.
fucking proud of you, man. I
Thank
mean,
you. Thank you.
take a moment and really know that the work you're putting out there is
Yeah.
it's not only amazing, it's inspiring. And
Thank you.
I nothing but amazing things are going to come your way, and that's a fucking promise, man. And I really cherish your everything that you're doing. Thank you, man. It's touched me on a deep way, and I need that. So before I cry, I love you, dude. Thank you.
Oh, man. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. To be continued. All right.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Till the next time.